It's no longer news that Africa's biggest oil producer is trying to get its refineries working in an attempt to rein itself off imported fuel. In the past years, it has been a trial and error for Nigeria to crank up its aging and unprofitable crude processing plants. But the good news there is that the rehabilitation of refineries are now in due process. Although the country is given it another shot, if successful, could end the nation's reliance on fuel imports. It's still spending trillions of its revenue importing. The amount spent in the first half of this year has risen to 1.47 trillion. Now, this is more than 73% of what was incurred in the previous year. According to the data from the National Bureau of Statistics, the 1.47 trillion naira is about 86% of what the country spent on petrol imports in the whole of 2019. Now, how long will the country continue to spend before it beats a retreat? Well, I introduced that earlier. She's an energy analyst at Steris Business, Noelle Okwedy. It's good to see you, Noelle. Good afternoon. Thank you for your time.
Good afternoon. Thank you for having me, Tolulope.
Yes, 1.47 trillion. This amount, to me, it's always on the high side, keeps increasing. Now, what do you make of this before we go into other basics of what this means for our economy at this time?
Okay, so the NNPC has come out to say that 42,000 barrels per day is being smuggled from Nigeria every day. This is a huge number. So they estimate that Nigeria's demand is 60,000 barrels per day. So 42,000, that's almost equal to what our demand is. So this is increasing Nigeria's fuel demand. And this is happening because in neighboring countries, their petrol is much more expensive because they don't have this subsidy that we're enjoying, in quotes. So it has fostered a market for smuggling, for petrol smuggling to Niger, Mali, and neighboring countries. So that's one of the major reasons why petrol imports expenditure has increased.
Let's also talk about refining. Some say if we're refining locally, it will be better than what we have at the moment. We're all waiting for Dangote Refinery. Everyone keeps talking about that. But there's a 1.5 billion rehabilitation of the PortHarcourt Refinery. What do you make of all of these moves by government? Are we getting it right at all with refining?
So we have to start from the beginning of the problem. So the problem is that Nigeria is importing fuel because our refineries are not working. And it's crazy to think about it because if you think about it, Nigeria is a crude oil producing country and we're now importing petrol, which is a byproduct.
All right, let's see if we can reconnect with our guest, Noelle, to continue to make sense of this topic. Very, very worrisome. 1.47 trillion naira for importation of premium motor spirit for the first half of 2021. Let's take a break. We'll try to connect with our guest and continue this discussion. It's Business Nigeria. Don't go away. All right, thank you very much for staying with us. I have my guest now, Noelle Okwedy, back, the energy analyst. Noelle, can you hear me now?
Yes, I can hear you. So
you were trying to make your point then. Go ahead.
Okay, so I was saying that we're spending a lot on fuel importation when we have these refineries. And then if you also look at it in the context of our economic situation where Nigeria is having to search currencies basically next to nothing compared to the dollar. We're at 530 right now, and we're trying to build up our dollar reserves. And then you're having to, because we pay for this fuel in dollars, so we're spending from dollars that should come into our reserves, we are spending it on fuel imports. So it's not a sustainable arrangement at all. So from that point of view, you can see like the logic behind rehabilitating these refineries. Then you also have Dangote Refinery, which is coming up. So the hope is that when these refineries are up and running, we won't have to spend so much, or won't even have to spend anything at all on importing fuel. So yes, I think it's a good move, but it's just like the Nigerian issue is always implementation. for planning, we always plan very well, but implementation will be something that we'll have to see if it's actually happened the way it has been planned.
Let's look at subsidy payments, or what some people call under recovery. What do you make of this?
Okay, so on one hand, like I just said before, subsidies are draining Nigeria's dollar reserves. So, like I said, dollars that we could save up in our reserves and use for other things, we're using it for fuel imports. On the other hand, the economic situation in Nigeria is not really one where people are even willing or able to pay for petrol. So right now it's 160. I imagine that if the subsidy was removed, it would go up to over 200 naira per liter. And given the economic situation now with inflation rising, food inflation our inflation rates are in double digits at the moment. Disposable income is the lowest has ever been. 1 in 3 Nigerians are unemployed. There's just not enough money for people to buy petrol at the market price, and that's the need for the subsidy. So, in summary, like you can see the need for the subsidy, but at the same time, it's not sustainable for Nigeria's economy. So, it has to go.
You also think it has to go. Now, total deregulation, well, that will be subsidy, and that's where PIA comes in, which has become law. Some say if it were to be properly implemented, subsidy should be a thing of the past at the moment. Now, what do you think the labor leaders should be saying now at the moment? They are still speaking to government. What do you think should be their position at this time? Clearly, many of us know that subsidy payment is not sustainable.
Definitely. So the Labour Congress or the Labour Union, they speak for the people. And like I said, the economic situation in Nigeria is not one where a lot of people will be able to afford petrol. And also given the fact that we don't just use petrol for transportation like for our cars, because it's also a source of electricity because the national grid, the electricity situation in Nigeria is not the best at all. So petrol is a lifesaver for many people. And increasing the price will increase the cost of so many goods and other things, and for businesses, for individuals, for homes. So in that regard, you can see the Labour Congress's point, but you have to think about the wider picture. So removing the fuel subsidies, we hope that money will be used for other areas of development. So for developing the economy, for developing, creating more jobs. We're hoping that we'll see that money in the economy, and eventually it will come into our purses as development comes to Nigeria. So in terms of, if you're looking at it from a short-sighted point of view, you can see the point for the subsidy, but I think the Labour Congress should look at it from a long-term point of view. So in the long term, if Nigeria has more money at its disposal, hoping that they use it properly, we can see more development and then more jobs, and people will be able to afford to pay the price of petrol. So I think that's the point of view should be looked at from.
We've also seen positives with regards to crude oil prices and the market trading in that market. What's your outlook for the oil market despite the third wave of COVID-19?
Well, recently, I think on the 4th of September, OPEC, the Organization of Petroleum Exporting Countries, which Nigeria is a member of, they've decided to increase their quotas because they foresee that there's going to be a rebound in the price of petrol, which is good. So we're seeing that even though there's a pandemic, and as we know, COVID cases are surging, but there haven't been shutdowns as we saw last year when a lot of economies went into global lockdowns. So we're seeing that as vaccines are being distributed and people are getting vaccinated, there's a hope that the economy will not have to go back to the stage it was in last year. But at the same time, going back to this subsidy issue, for Nigeria, higher petrol prices are not really good for our subsidy position, because the higher the petrol prices, the higher the cost of petrol, the market price of petrol, and the higher the subsidies that we have to pay. So this is just another reason or another issue that is highlighting the case for subsidy removal, because we can't really enjoy the benefits of higher petrol oil prices given the petrol subsidies.
It's a good way to leave it. Thank you very much. First time appearance on our show. We appreciate this. Energy analyst, Stairs Business, Noelle Okwedy. Thank you so much. We'll be reaching out to you anytime we have issues around the oil and gas space, and we hope you'll be there to speak to us and make us understand it.
Thank you so much, Tolope. Anytime.